All right. So hello, everybody. Hopefully you can see me. We had a few technical difficulties, which tend to just be user error on my end. So I wasted 5 minutes of Brandon's time. He was very kind about it, even though I think my team might disown me after trying to get online for so long.
No worries.
But Brandon, thanks, man. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we do our monthly office hours. This is our second, so we're kind of just getting it off the ground. But last month was pretty cool. We got pretty far into medical weight loss and a lot of the news that's breaking there, which has been like no shortage of changes from a legislative purpose. This week, I feel like lighten it up a bit and a little more enjoyable to talk about practice management and what folks can do. On our side, I guess I'll give, for anybody who doesn't know, a little bit about Marti Law Group, and then obviously I'm going to pass it to Brandon and pepper him with questions. But for folks who don't know, I mean, our firm is pretty specialized we're very specialized in healthcare. Within healthcare, we're pretty niched down into a certain number of verticals, and we do a lot of work in med spa, medical aesthetics, wellness, some other areas of dentistry. There's some overlap in some of these areas. And so we do a lot of transactional work. We don't litigate. We focus very much on transactions. There's a lot of M&A right now for folks who know what that is, mergers and acquisitions. And Wall Street has basically found the aesthetic space and is invading. So we do a lot of work there, a lot of work around compliance. And so we work with startups all the time, new spa owners, new practice owners. And I think truly one of the things that I lack is in my prior life, ran a bunch of dental practices, but I've not operated behind the desk in an aesthetics practice. And so I think someone like Brandon brings a wealth of knowledge. And I'm excited to kind of pick his brain on his side, and I'll let him kind of do an intro. But, Brandon brings, I don't even know how many jobs you have at this point. But he is the founder of Aesthetic Practice Management Group, which I want him to tell us all about because I think it's awesome what he's doing. You probably know him if you're on this, you've seen him all over social, you've seen him on stage at AMSPA, at Aesthetic Next, which is I think where I tracked you down because I was like, you just posted something on your social, your Instagram, can you make that for me? And he was kind enough, he was like, this idiot, clearly I have technical difficulties. So he made a post that we could use on our social. So Brandon, thank you for joining us. And you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Thank you for inviting me. And now that you say that, the past 15 minutes of life make that Canva that I created for you make a lot more sense now. So thank you, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Brandon Mullen. I am a registered nurse. I'm a practice manager at Iona Atelier, and I'm here now in our wellness studio. So welcome. Real quick, I was a critical care bedside nurse. I worked in healthcare IT and case management for the better part of 8 years. And then I've been a practice manager since January of 21 when Ashley Carmen founded this gorgeous space and started to get into injectables, creating her own brand. So, since then I have been kind of learning as I go as far as what is a practice manager. And I've learned, through a bunch of conferences and networking with a lot of different people that every business is unique and everyone kind of is integrated in the practice a little bit to varying degrees. So everybody does everything a little bit different. And that's why I started APMG last year. It actually started after one person asked me a question. We started Zooming once a week. We were sharing best practices and tips. And I thought, well, let's bring this a little bit to a broader audience. So I decided to make it a little bit more of an official arm of my consulting company. And it's been amazing ever since. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest of how I got into this about 4 years ago.
That's awesome. I recall seeing you, I think at this most recent Aesthetic Next, and you had your group of folks, your mastermind going on. And I really was like, I should have sat in on it because I wanted to learn some gems that we could drop. But, we like to help folks beyond just being lawyers and telling them about all the awful things that can happen to them and how they can lose their license a million ways. We'd rather advise, but also like talk startup, talk like strategy, talk things you can do to get your business up and running and your med spa up and running. and that's your like the master in that. I feel like you consult with all these practices. So before you got into that, like when did you turn to aesthetics? When did you discover like, hey, I like this thing, I want to get away from the hospital? How did you make that pivot?
I really believe that everything happens for a reason. Like right at the ass end of COVID, it was January of 21, and Ashley was opening up this space. And within 3 months, she was booked and busy and losing her mind. She's like, I can't answer the phone. I can't update my website. I don't have time to do marketing. And I said, well, I don't know how the hell to do any of that, but I'll figure it out. So I started to work for her, and I donned myself a fractional practice manager, and I took a leap of faith. I quit at the time I was a client relationship executive for a software company, quit my corporate job and said, you know what, I'm just going to take a leap of faith, do this. And I commute every other week back and forth between my home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania and Virginia. And I make it work. I do a lot of things on site while I'm here. And then there's a lot of stuff I can take home, and a lot of streamlined technology and optimization that I can do a lot of stuff when I'm at home. So we've been doing it for almost 4 years now, and we haven't killed each other since. So it's been an amazing ride and an incredible learning curve, but I love it.
You're literally everywhere too. I mean, you're every conference, you're there, you're speaking, you're on the stage. Like you're just everywhere. Everywhere I'm like, I know Brand, yeah, I know him. He's a good buddy. So it's brought me a lot of street cred in the industry because I know you. So
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I have terrible imposter syndrome. I have no idea why, but the first thing I did was I went to Aesthetic Next in fall of 21, because coming from like bedside nursing, I always wanted to be a part of an association or a part of a team. So I always had like something in nursing, and I was trying to seek that out being a practice manager. And for me, that was Aesthetic Next. And I just kind of got really comfortable being uncomfortable. And I just introduced myself to people. I was a real big dork the first year and took a bunch of notes, but like, I didn't know how to be a practice manager. And, some days I still feel like that, but, I'm still learning, and, this profession is always evolving. So it keeps me on my toes.
So you mentioned like, you were figuring out being a manager. I'm still, after having businesses for a number of years, still trying to figure out how to be a manager, right? I think the hardest part of running any business, aesthetics, a law firm, dental practice, whatever, it comes down to the people, right? Or one of the primary things is figuring out the people, right? I could use all the cliches, get the right people in the right seats, and all the things that the business books preach. How do you advise your clients or the people that you're providing your fractional practice management services for? Like, how do you advise them? Where do you start to look for the right people? How do you vet them? How do you onboard them? I mean, I can tell you, as looking for associate attorneys is incredibly difficult. Looking for associate anything, right? Injectors, anybody, it's really difficult. So how do you start that process and guide your folks through it?
So it really is about the people first. You're 100% correct. It doesn't matter about the services that you provide or what your motive is, whether it's financial or otherwise, but you really have to come down to the people first. And just to clarify, like Ashley is like my number one like client. I manage all 3 of her locations, but I have had a handful of one-offs. And when those instances occur, it's really hard to rein in the awesome imagination of people, entrepreneurs, injectors, estheticians who want to do everything. They're like, yeah, I want to do weight loss and injectables and lips and all the things. Right. I'm like, that's fantastic, but you have to start somewhere. Unless you have this magical unicorn of a person who is multifaceted, and you also have a practice manager who can help support all of that, that hasn't happened yet. So I'm not going to hold my breath, but it's always starting with people first. That's one thing that I've learned over the past couple of years. When you lead with money, it usually doesn't work out well. Like money will come as long as you build something that comes from honesty and altruism and doing whatever you're going to do correctly. As you know, the state laws are absolutely crazy. This is the Wild West right now. But when you start off with that right person that has good intention, and it's not even that they need to be trained or have, a vast experience in injectables, for example, as long as they have like an apt for learning, the right credentials, the right licenses, you can teach people. I think that the more malleable and teachable people are, the better. And sometimes finding those skill sets outside of nursing or aesthetics can be a benefit to some extent. Everyone always says, like, how do I find a practice manager? How do I find a Brandon? And I'm like, you don't want two of this in the world, but you want to look for qualities, not necessarily like a checkbox list of things. Like, you need somebody has a little bit of hustle. I find the younger crowd these days, they don't know how to hustle. You could push them out in front of traffic and they'd stand there. But, you need to find people that have organization. You need to look for like skills, not necessarily a resume. This isn't, in my opinion, a very like, cookie cutter job position, no matter what the role is in an aesthetic practice. But, finding that right person can be difficult, but looking for those skills and other psychosocial factors that, if they can integrate into your team, you can really make someone a valuable asset and help grow your business.
It's amazing. You articulated so well. I think you just explained to my whole team what I've been trying to say when we're looking for somebody. So maybe you'll just do legal recruiting on the side. That'd be great. And by the way, folks, I should have mentioned this. I apologize. There is a chat box somewhere. I'm still getting used to the system, but I think on the right, you should have the opportunity to pop in questions for Brandon. It's meant to be pretty interactive, and I don't want to bore everybody. So if you have things you're dying to ask him, like, please, pop questions in. I'll keep eyes on it. So, okay, let's assume you find somebody you really like, and you're onboarding them, you're training them. A practice owner finds a manager, or whoever it is, the position you're trying to fill. Are you a firm believer in KPIs, putting these kind of measurables in place so we can track how they're doing? And if so, like, what KPIs, what do you put in place to see if the person's meeting your expectations?
I think there has to be kind of clear guidelines, and taking like a step back from that, I would say having like a really clear job description about what roles and responsibilities are is number one. And it's like the number one thing that people look over. And I'm really not sure why, because if there's not an expectation that's met 6 weeks or 6 months down the road, 6 weeks, whatever that time frame is, and they don't have anything to like lean on to say, well, if they say, I don't know, I'm like, well, actually you didn't know because it wasn't in your job description. So,
right.
If it's, numbers driven, looking at revenue per hour and like having like a goal to be XYZ by day 90, and then another measurable goal, I think really helps to keep everyone in check, because numbers don't lie. So you need to make sure that you're holding people accountable to something. And, if an expectation isn't being met, then you need to dive deeper into what that problem is, or what is that gap? Is it education? Is it marketing? Is it a misunderstanding of the expectations? Things like that. You just need to dive a little bit deeper to see what that problem is. So I think things like revenue per hour, looking at average ticket sales, things like that really help to align both, like, from a business standpoint and from, an example like practice manager, like, am I contributing? Am I doing what I need to do? Is that reflecting in revenue?
Right. That's great. I mean, I guess on that note, like maybe pivoting, let's thinking about the new practice manager, or excuse me, the new practice owner.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to get things off the ground. And I think you talked earlier about, like, number one, don't try to offer every service under the sun and try to do it all at once. But what are the tips that you would give, right? Or when you get asked, I'm sure all the time from someone, like, we get calls every single day. I want to start a med spa. What do I do? Can I own one here, in my state? And we have to talk them through, an MSO process, right? Or management services organization. Or, having a medical director, having good faith exams. What does that all mean? When you get that question, like, I want to go start my spa, like, what are the kind of gems you would give people when they're out there looking to hang their shingle?
Well, first of all, I give them your number and I say, look to see if you can even do this first. But, it's like, what's your main motive? Like, what is your goal? Again, if you're just like, I just want to make money, like, yes, we all want to make money. No one goes into business to go broke, with that aspiration. But it's like, what is your goal? What do you like to do? That's a very big thing. Like, if you like to do things, if you like skincare, if you like microneedling, if you like talks, that's great. You're going to sell it because you're going to be passionate about it and you're going to educate about it. But if you don't like something and you're just doing it because you think it's going to make money, okay, like I can buy into it a little bit, but like what else is there a demand? Do you see
Right.
that no one else offers this service? Does somebody else offer it, but they do a poor job? I always say, like, even if you have a competitive market, like Dunkin' Donuts doesn't care that Starbucks is down the street. So you can do something, you just have to do it really well and put thought into it. You can't just like go to a conference and buy all the shit and buy a laser and like do everything just because somebody says. Like, you have
Yeah.
to have a business plan. And if you don't, you need somebody to help you build a business plan. And, what I kind of, dawn myself as a consultant is I try to help people avoid pitfalls that I've seen over the past couple of years. And helping to like narrow focus of people, because the most brilliant injectors, Ashley included, like all the people in my circle, I love them to death, but they have terrible ADHD and they like to build the plane when they're flying. And, they just, they're just want to do all the things all the time. And I'm like, that is fantastic. But, you need to be realistic about timelines, about finances, about who and how these services and treatments are going to be provided, make a marketing plan around it. Like it seems basic, but I mean, it takes time and you need to have that forethought before you make any of these decisions.
It's so true. As like entrepreneurs, right? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur through like we are visionary. I want to do this. Wait, let's stop. I mean, my team's probably laughing. I'm like, wait, let's stop. Nope. Now we're going in this direction. And oh, by the way, let's do that and the way there. And so without a true, like it's almost the COO to the CEO, right? Like, you need that person who's like, cool, this is all great. Let's start with step one and put it in place, which seems like the practice manager, the person you're training that you're building, they're going to hold this thing together and actually make sure folks execute.
Absolutely. Ideally, I mean, it's once you grow big enough to have like somebody that you need help doing things with, then, that person, if you give them the power, and that's the thing, like you need to give them, like
Yeah.
delegate that responsibility. And a lot of people have a lot of fear of letting people in and opening up the doors, opening up the books, what have you, because they have a fear of retribution. They have a fear of, intellectual property stealing, like all kinds of like craziness. But like, that's why you really have to find that like solid person that has your best interest in heart. And truly, like, I feel like Ion Atelier is like, I treat it like my business. Like whenever something happens, like I remember I dropped a vial of sculpture once and I almost pooped my pants because I know how much that costs. Like I
Right.
did not, want to make that mistake, but that's how I learn and grow, is from those mistakes. But, I truly feel passionate about, the brand, and I respect it. And it's not like a job that I punch into. Like it's like life.
Yeah. You hit on two really good things. One, is it is so hard for the owner, leader, whatever, to give up control. I've struggled with that like in so many times in my career, and probably like, hurt, like, it didn't enable someone to grow, right? It probably like put them in a, like, I can't do anything without this one looking over my shoulder. My team might say, still do that. I'm trying not to, but that totally can just cripple, somebody's growth. Right. So I think you're spot on there. Like, it's hard to find that person that you're going to trust. For us, we were blessed when we got Hannah. Like, Hannah is our, like, I don't want to blow up her head too much, but literally like runs the whole place. The reason we've done, significant growth, I'd say, over the past couple of years is really, Hannah's doing. So having the brand and having the Hannah, like, it can't be, in my opinion, it can't be done, or at least be done well, unless the owner wants to live there, right, and do everything. And you have to give up some of that control. The other piece, so you touch on, is like, for me, I'm trying to think, what is the growth path for a practice manager? Like, do you see folks getting, number one, are they getting promoted from within, and like their front desk, right, and reception, do a great job, and now you're a manager? And beyond the manager, like, are there opportunities for them to continue to scale? One of the things we see is people, or as an injector, They build a good book of business. Even for lawyers, build a good book of business, and they want to go down the street and open. And people always think, obviously, running a business. You talked about it. There's so many facets to it that they don't think about. So if we want to retain the talent, both from the idea of the practice manager, their growth plan, and even just internally, like anybody, what do you envision? Like, how do we retain that great talent, grow them, help them feel some ownership?
No, I think that's a great point. I think that, over the past couple of years, I've evolved in more of like the logistics and kind of networking aspect to kind of create different opportunities for Ashley specifically. Like, for example, like I don't mind going up on stage and sharing or talking because I'm so passionate about what I do. So I kind of forced her into speaking one year, and that opens up other channels. Same thing like with a podcast. Like I kind of just try to seek out opportunities for her, but like that's kind of like my prior life as like a client relationship executive software company. Like that business brain like still lives like somewhere back here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just anyone in general, like exploring what other opportunities or interests they might have outside of their direct role is always awesome, because you might have a great injector that's passionate about social media and you might suck at social media. You might hate social media. I've known many practice managers, estheticians, everyone else that like kind of, it wasn't their first priority or job, take that on kind of like secondarily, and they rock at it. But I think you ultimately get better employee satisfaction when you're allowed to kind of have that creativity or the autonomy to explore other interests. Because I think that everybody in this day and age, like it's not like you just go to the same place and work for 40 years anymore.
Right.
That mentality is done. So I think you need to really just figure out like what really motivates people. And this is more like HR-ish, like check in with people, ask them like, what do you need from me? Do you need education? Do you want more work-life balance? Like not everyone is motivated financially. Not everybody wants these treatments, believe it or not. We talk about this stuff all the time on APMG about like checking in with employees. And I remember somebody shared about not really wanting, they didn't want their like quarterly bonus for like Botox and skincare. They had like no interest in it. And I was like, that's odd to be an injector, but I mean, it can happen. So what do they want? Do they want more of a work-life balance? Do they want to get involved in the business aspect a little bit more? I think there's so many things to do within the aesthetic practice that the possibilities are endless. So just having a conversation and checking in with people to see what those are is something that doesn't happen all the time.
Right. And that's amazing that you're saying this, because truly I feel like you're speaking to me, because this whole past Q4, we've been trying to really get ready for for 2025. And it's like a lot of internal searching, like what can we be doing better? And so what you're saying transcends aesthetics, it's business, right? And so talking to your people, and I've realized I'm like, I don't do that very much. Like I need to stop, sit, like let me hear what they're thinking. And let's, I kind of believe in surround yourself with folks smarter than you, which is why I have all these attorneys that work with us, because I'm kind of like, the biz dev guy, and I do some attorney work, but they're the real brains, and they help me piece it all together. So I love that. So we've talked a little bit, and we're at like 30 minutes here, so I'll only ask a couple more questions, and then if people have questions, we can dive in. We talked a lot about the team, right, and building your team and the practice manager for an owner, like what to look for. Let's pivot to patients. And how do you, I mean, I don't know about you, but I see folks leaving spas to go open their own all the time. And, competition is rampant. And yes, it's not, people have figured out this is a lucrative industry and there's a lot of competition. How do we, I say we, like practice owners, how do practice owners really focus on patient retention and keeping that patient coming back and happy? Like what are those, and it can be through the eyes of a practice manager or just anyone in the practice, how do we keep them coming back so we keep a thriving business?
No, it's a great point. I think that if you have a strong brand, Like you'll have those people that go to Starbucks and you'll have those people that go to Dunkin' Donuts. But if you have a brand that appeals to your demographic, and I think that takes a little bit of time, like years to develop, you can do things like loyalty programs. Memberships are like number one here. We have wellness, we have a VIP membership, and those really provide everything that, gives that surprise and delight, but builds discounts that make financial sense from a business perspective, but also keep people coming back. When there was a tox that came out that I shall not name that was like, oh, it gives a 6-month longevity. And I'm like, why would I not want to see people at least quarterly? Like, why would I be like, no, I don't want to see you for 6 months. Like that was the dumbest thing ever. Not only the indications that it really didn't last 6 months, but
right.
I digress. That was like the number one thing. I'm like, I love seeing people quarterly. Like the hallmark of our membership is that they come in every 3 months for a free skincare treatment as part of their membership. So, things like that, I've done a lot of back-end reports, but all of our members are responsible for over like 35% of our total revenue ever. Like they're our top spenders. So if you treat those people, if you treat them well and provide them the discounts, the services, everything that they want, they're going to be eternally grateful. Obviously you have to have, the knowledge and the products and everything else behind it. But, we treat them well. We respond and communicate effectively. We, give them little freebies whenever we have something new come out. So, we're having a patient appreciation event December 9th. Things like that. And I will give all the credit to Ashley for being the brainchild behind all of this. I just help implement, but she is amazing at being human and not treating people like they're a number, like they're not in a sterile doctor's office and that they're like in your home. So when you kind of create that brand experience, you're able to capture a lot more people than you would in some other spas that are more just kind of like turning people around. Like, they have a number at the deli kind of thing.
Yeah. No, and you hit on the head too, as far as membership. I mean, membership is sticky, right? It keeps people coming back. We have a membership now of our own that we're, rolling out, and it's been kind of cool for people to, I don't know, we're kind of on speed dial, and there's resources they get. And it's a game changer for spas and aesthetic practices and all business in general, I think.
It's amazing.
Last question I think I have, maybe we'll see. What are there some trends, emerging things you're seeing, like new technologies, things that you think practice owners should know, should be aware of, are coming onto the radar now, that, you either find helpful or interesting, or that, again, people should kind of keep an eye
on? Super loaded question. I mean, I think from a technology standpoint, there's so many players in this space now. I think everyone's seeing this as an opportunity to kind of prey on those maybe clinical people that don't have the business savvy. So, I just think that people need to be smart about where they're spending their money as far as like marketing and websites. Really get stuff in writing and have a plan, and a guarantee. If those people were throwing out guarantees that seem outlandish, get it in writing.
Yeah. Have your lawyer look at it. Maybe your lawyer could review it as well.
Have the lawyer look at it, see if it's legit. Because everybody has, the best of this, and they promise this in the world and the sun. And I'm like, it just like, if it doesn't make common sense, I don't know why you would sign up for it.
Right.
I think from just like a general like services perspective, I mean, I feel like lasers are pretty steady. Typical like HA fillers are down. I think across the board, that's definitely something that's been socialized in APMG, but looking at more natural treatments like Easy Gel, PRF, things like that, people are looking for those more natural results. And, the big lips and the puffy cheeks are finally on their way out. I think that looking for more natural regenerative services and, topical treatments too, like growth factors, those are starting to trend upwards too. And they really do work. Looking into those, if you don't have that in your practice, something to definitely look into, and do your research, see what's going on, in your neighborhood or what other people are offering. Just because they offer it doesn't mean you can't. Just
Right.
figure out how you can do it and do it better.
Right. I love it. I mean, honestly, Brandon, I can't say you're our favorite guest. I'm not allowed to say that, but kind of one of the top. I could talk to you all day about this stuff because I truly think it does surpass just one industry. I think it, is such valuable information. We'll definitely, record this, and we'll kind of disseminate the information for anyone who can't join. For the people who are with us and maybe watching this later, where can they find you? Where do you want them, to gather resources, and how can they kind of track you down and try to keep up with you, frankly?
I think the best way to stalk me is on Instagram. I am at _aesthetic, AESTH. Oh God, I can't spell right now. I'm really tired. Aesthetic consultant, all one word. And my link tree is in there, and that's where all the things are. So that's the best way to stalk me.
Amazing. Follow him. Seriously, if you have a practice, if you have a business, find him at the different events where he's speaking. Follow him on. It's probably like one of my favorite socials to follow on the gram. I'm always stalking as well. So truly a wealth of knowledge, and thank you for setting aside, for plus my technical difficulties, so a good hour of time with us. And we're grateful, man. Thank you for everything you've done, and you've helped us kind of get more established and known in the space. So I don't see any other questions. If you have any closing thoughts, Brandon, let me know. If not, we'll kind of wrap it. And yeah, I appreciate the people who joined us.
No, I think that's really about it. I appreciate the time and the little deeper dive into what a practice manager is and what they do. So yeah, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you.